If you've been on this platform for a while, then you probably heard about MicroStrategy. Maybe you even bought their stock at the peak in December and lost money. But over the past year, the company made a series of genius moves that turned their stock from meme status into a legitimate investment. So the question is, are they a genius firm with a brilliant strategy or a ticking time bomb that could explode at any moment? Let's examine both sides of the argument, starting with how MicroStrategy even makes money. Since 2020, MicroStrategy has been buying and holding Bitcoin. They currently have 140,000 coins worth over $6 billion. And if you look at their stock chart, you will see that it mirrors the price of Bitcoin almost 1-to-1. In fact, it often does way better than even NVIDIA, a company that actually makes computer hardware. How is that even possible? Well, here's how. But before, please subscribe to not miss any new daily crypto videos in the future. MicroStrategy is a public company, which means they can raise capital by selling shares. When they do this, it brings in a ton of cash, which they then use to buy more Bitcoin. Now, the problem is that dilutes the value of your investment. I mean, think about it. If I own 100% of a company and then issue 10 more shares, my ownership now represents only 9% of the company. But if I sell those shares for $10 each, I would make $100. So there's an incentive for public companies to keep issuing new shares, and that's exactly what MicroStrategy did. They sold 30 million shares for $515 each. At first glance, it looks like they made $15.5 billion. However, that is not the case. Instead, that amount is split between all the shareholders. In this example, I would get $155. The rest of the money goes to the company, which in turn uses it to buy more Bitcoin. They've also issued convertible bonds. These are loans that will be repaid with interest in 2025. But here's the catch: the interest rate is 0%. Basically, investors lend them money for 5 years, with the expectation that by then MicroStrategy stock will be high enough for them to convert the debt to shares. That way, they can make money without taking on additional risk. And finally, they also issued preferred shares called STRK and STRF. These shares pay 8 to 10% dividends, which adds another layer of financial obligations. Now, here's where things start getting interesting. The proceeds from these 3 sources of funding go towards paying off the initial debts and expenses. Any additional money goes towards buying Bitcoin. But the problem is that this creates a vicious cycle. New investors fund old obligations. In other words, the company is constantly raising money to pay off previous investors, and that right there is a legal Ponzi scheme. The next question is, how long can this continue? Well, the answer depends on 3 variables. First is the price of Bitcoin. If it drops below $43,000, then MicroStrategy would have to sell everything to repay bondholders, which is highly unlikely. The second variable is whether or not they can keep issuing new shares. But here's the thing: the higher the share price gets, the harder it becomes to justify selling new shares. In this example, MicroStrategy stock is $300. Imagine how stupid it would look if they tried to sell new shares at that price. On top of that, existing shareholders would feel betrayed because they know that the stock could double or even triple overnight. Why would they want to sell? Finally, we have the convertible bonds. Remember, these are loans that will need to be repaid in 2025. If the stock is above $55 by then, bondholders would be happy with their investment. But if it's below that price, some might demand repayment. In summary, the company is a giant Bitcoin bet. It's extremely volatile and risky, but very lucrative if the gamble pays off. For example, just take a look at this chart. Over the past few years, MicroStrategy's stock price was all over the place. Sure, there were periods of growth, but most of them ended in disaster. After every Bitcoin peak, the stock tried to break out but failed. If history repeats itself, then we could be looking at a devastating bear market. Right now, the bulls have the upper hand. The current rally is stronger than last cycle, and there are no signs of slowing down. But here's the thing: this chart has an RSI divergence. The RSI is a momentum oscillator, and divergences often signal a loss of momentum. So my verdict is this: in the short term, the stock could still go up a lot if Bitcoin goes up a lot. In the long run, it could go bust at any moment. To me, it feels like a classic blow-off top. In other words, the perfect time to trade MicroStrategy is when everyone thinks it's too late to invest. Of course, that's easier said than done, so good luck. And remember, this is not financial advice. Don't blindly follow anyone's trades. Make sure you understand the risks involved before investing. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps out. And, as always, see you tomorrow.